Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the council chambers this evening. Before I start, one of the things I'm going to ask everybody to do is to turn off your cell phones. We have a very special recognition evening, and it would be really terrible if everybody's cell phones started to ring. So if you could do that ahead of us starting today, I'd appreciate it. So I'm going to call our meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. and we're going to start with a moment of silent reflection. I want to acknowledge that October 10th was World Mental Health Day as declared by the World Health Organization. This day raises awareness of mental health issues around the world and mobilizes efforts in support of mental health. Although it is the global day for mental health that I'm speaking of, we know that nearly 50% of all Canadians have or will experience some form of mental health challenges in their lifetime. So it is something that definitely affects all of us. So acknowledging this day provides us an opportunity to work together on these issues, to talk about the issue, to reduce stigma, and to really determine what more needs to get done in order for mental health care to be a reality of people in our community in Canada and worldwide. With that, can you please join me in a moment of silence? Thank you. I'm hoping that whatever that noise is can be dealt with. Okay, moving on to item 1.2, our land acknowledgement. The municipality of Port Hope exists on the lands of the Mississauga Anishinaabe traditional territory covered by the Williams Treaties. We honor and recognize First Peoples as rights holders and stewards of the lands and waters on which we have the privilege to live, work, and play, including the Ganaraska Forest and River. We pay respect to elders, past, present, and emerging. We commit to actions towards truth and reconciliation by recognizing the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, strengthening ties with First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, especially those who make their home in Port Hope, and learning from Indigenous ways of knowing and being. We do so by recognizing the past and working towards a shared future. Moving on to item number 2. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest around the table? I note that none were received ahead of tonight's meeting. Seeing none, we have no closed session today, and we're moving on to one of the highlights of today's evening, and that is announcements, updates, and recognition, starting with item 4.1, which is our volunteer firefighter long service recognition. I want to just note before I have my opening remarks that typically in council, we encourage refrain from any kind of public expression, whether that's clapping or booing or hissing or anything else that happens. But today, in light of the fact that this is such an important evening of recognition, we will be allowing for applause. So today we gather to celebrate the remarkable dedication of our volunteer firefighters. These extraordinary individuals selflessly commit their time and energy to protect our community, often putting their lives on the line and at risk to ensure our safety. They respond to emergencies with courage and professionalism, embodying the very spirit of service. As a municipality, we recognize the countless hours, the training, and the sacrifices, in particular, the sacrifices made in terms of their jobs and their families and other responsibilities. Their unwavering commitment deserves our deepest, deepest gratitude and respect. Today, we are proud to honor those who have reached significant milestones in their service. Whether it's 5 years or 20, each represents a promise kept or promises kept to our community, to each other, and the values that we hold so near and dear. Let us take a moment to acknowledge these heroes and express our heartfelt thanks. Your dedication inspires us, and we are incredibly grateful for your service. I also welcome our MPP, David Piccini, who is in the audience today. I welcome MPP Piccini and Chief Williams to the Horseshoe to give the awards to our distinguished firefighters. And if the MPP would like to share any words on this occasion, I also welcome you to do so.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you all for being here tonight. It gives me a pleasure to be here on behalf of the Office of the Fire Marshal and the Government of Ontario to acknowledge what the service this evening, and in particular, significant milestones. Any service above self is recognized and valued in our community. You run into fires as everybody else runs from it, and I just want to acknowledge the incredible sacrifice and dedication of volunteer firefighters and our fire service. It's particularly noticed, especially in the context of our labor portfolio on the occupational exposures and what you put yourself through to keep our community safe. It's noticed, it's valued, and it's appreciated. And on behalf of the Government of Ontario, thank you all for your service. And I know our entire community is grateful. Thank you.
Thank you to all our membership. I've got to raise this a little bit. Thank you to all our membership for showing up and showing your support for everyone. Again, to reiterate what MPP Piccini said and our mayor, the importance of tonight. Tonight is one of my favorite nights of the year to acknowledge years of service, especially noting those special milestones that many of you reached. Today, we're celebrating 105 years of service to Port Hope Fire Emergency Services and to the community of Port Hope, which is an amazing thing. So first of all, I'd like to start off, if we can get firefighter Mackenzie Allison celebrating 5 years with Port Hope Fire Emergency Services. You just want to come do the gauntlet? Yeah, shake everybody's hand. Next, celebrating 5 years of service, Lieutenant Brian Sibbles. Next up, celebrating 5 years of service, Lieutenant Mike Martin. Next up, we have Lieutenant Mike O'Brien celebrating 10 years of service with Port Hope Fire and Emergency Services. Next up, we have 20 years of service with Port Hope Fire and Emergency Services, Captain Chris House. Celebrating 20 years of service with Port Hope Fire and Emergency Services, District Chief Brian Bernard. So the next two, very special celebration of years of service. Both gentlemen have served over 30 years with Port Hope Fire and Emergency Services. First up, we have District Chief Bradley Goodwin, who will be receiving his 30-year exemplary service medal from the Office of the Fire Marshal, which will be presented by MPP Piccini. Last but not least, another 30-year service recognition medal for Lieutenant Bill Reed.
At this point, we're going to break just for 2 or 3 minutes to allow everybody to exit out of council chambers. And please join me again in a heartfelt round of applause. Okay, I think this is a good time for us to reconvene. I will continue on with our announcements, updates, and recognitions category, moving on to Ontario Public Library Week. I have proclaimed the month of October as Canadian Libraries Month and the fourth week of October as Ontario Public Library Week in Port Hope. We believe that libraries play a valuable role in the lives of Canadians and indeed in our community here in Port Hope. They are more than just a place to find books. Libraries promote cultural awareness, engage the community, provide educational programs, support freedom of expression and safety, and so much more. Moving on to the next item, budget survey. The budget survey is still open for participation. You may have seen your council out and about at different places in the community over the last number of days. And I'm really proud to announce that as of this afternoon, we have 1,004 respondents to the budget survey. That's already history for this community. But you know, our goal is 10% of all Port Hopians participating in the survey. Doesn't seem like a lot of constituents. It is only 10%, but we've got 700 more respondents to go. So please do remember to fill out the survey. If you've done it, encourage your neighbors, your friends, others in your network to do so. We have some important and difficult decisions in front of us, and it's very important that we do hear from everybody in the community. So please do encourage those in your lives to participate and engage with us. The survey questions are important because they do focus on municipal services that impact the tax levy, and your decisions and the input that we get will help us in our decision making. And if you don't know where to find the survey, you can find it at porthope.ca/budget. You will be entered into a contest for gift cards in the community, and your council would be very grateful for your participation. In addition to the budget survey, you can have an opportunity to meet with members of council, attend our council's pre-budget engagement drop-in on October 17th between 5 and 7:30 p.m. So please do engage. Please do give us your input. We look forward to hearing from more of you right across Port Hope. One other update that I have for you, in honor of Local Government Week, we asked students to tell us why they love Port Hope. So I want to read tonight the winners of the second annual Mayor's Art Contest. We will be inviting the winners to our council meeting on November 5th to give out the awards in person, but I did want to read out the names of our winners. In the high school category, we have Leanna Michaud for I Love Port Hope for its scenery and tranquility. In the intermediate category, grades 7 to 8, Sydney Terry, I love the natural beauty of it. In the junior category, grades 4 to 6, Scarlett Terry, I love the small shops. And in the kindergarten and primary category, we had so many wonderful pieces to choose from that we couldn't just choose one. So there's 4 award winners. Harper Sterling, I love the beach. Nolan Hickman Morrissey, I love the salmon run downtown. Brooke Hart, I love all my friends and family that live here. And Simeon Terry, I love the cats of Tobin's. So those are all of our winners. You'll see the artwork displayed at Town Hall, and you'll get to meet the winners at our November 5th meeting. So before we move on to our presentation for this evening, do any council members have announcements or updates related to municipal business that they would like to share? Councillor Less.
Thank you. About a week ago, on September 28th, we received a email letter from Bradley Van Gerven, who's the acting sergeant of the Peterborough District of the Ministry of Natural Resources. And it was addressed to our own Sergeant Jerry Marino, and it was as follows. I wanted to follow up with Port Hope Police Service at the conclusion of our targeted blitz of the Ganaraska River. With the last-minute closure of the Ganaraska River, the planned operation had to quickly change focus. We appreciated all of the assistance your officers offered us, as well as the regular duty and paid duty officers that took care of issues when we didn't have any COs available. Being able to leave our blitz trailer in your services parking lot was very helpful for our out-of-district officers being able to store seizures and pick up equipment in a secure location. Most of our enforcement ended up shifting to the section of the Ganaraska River north of the 401, as well as the Cobourg Creek. Most of the historical issues shifted down to Durham region, where officers there reported seeing a 50% increase in traffic at their hotspots. Officers there conducted a 72-hour blitz and wrote over 200 Part 1s and 10 Part 3s, totaling fines of over $31,000. With your section of the Ganaraska River, we did periodically charge individuals in Optimus Park, and it appears that location will continue to be an issue going forward. Next year, our officers will focus on working late afternoon and overnight shifts in that area to help with the problem of staffing permits. At this time, our blitz totaled over 14,000 in fines, 6 Part 3 court dates, and numerous seizures. Most importantly, we collected a lot of information on the problem areas from your officers as well as ours. This information will assist us moving forward with a more targeted approach in the future. I'd like to particularly thank Constable Ryan Hendrick, who provided lots of helpful information to myself as well as our field officers. PC Hendrick messaged me as recent as this morning with issues he was still seeing in Optimus Park. If time permits, please keep an eye out for groups of people showing up during the overnight hours and pulling in large quantities of salmon over a short period. We're seeing that these groups are well organized with lookouts. There is an organized crime aspect of selling fish roe, and we have a task force that was put together late last summer to start identifying the players and networks. Salmon roe is plentiful, and once processed into caviar, it is fairly valuable. If you're able to provide names, vehicle descriptions, etc., to the MNR through this email, that would be very helpful in allowing us to shut down this illegal trade again. Again, thank you for all your assistance from your officers provided to our officers. So that was one of the impacts of the river salmon fishing this year. Yes, we did manage to somewhat secure the downtown section, but we still have more work to do north of the 401 and in Optimus Park. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Less. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
All right. Thank you for that. It just occurs to me, given the date today, that it might be a timely opportunity for an update on the transition today from the closure of the river to the next phase. Does anybody remember the details exactly to update the rest of us and the public about that? Let me think.
I believe the CAO is ready to answer that question.
Yes, thank you. Through you, Mayor, in response to the Deputy Mayor's comments, yes, today is the end of the period that was from September 1st to October 14th. That was the new seasonal sanctuary period for all fish species in the Ganaraska River from the south side of the Jocelyn Street Bridge to the CNR Bridge. The prohibited period is over, and the current extended fall season boundary will be expanded and is allowing fishing for Atlantic salmon, brown trout, Pacific salmon, and rainbow trout from the CNR Bridge upstream to the south side of Jocelyn Street Bridge from October 15th, which is today, to December 31st.
And we just want to remind the public that all the regulations are in place for angling, including a requirement to keep your fishing license on your body at all times and adhering to all the other rules and regulations. None of those have changed. Any other updates or announcements from council? Okay. Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 5, presentations. It's now time for presentations, and we have one this evening on the agenda, 5.1. Susan Jones-Book and Gemma Sim, Library Board members, Port Hope Public Library Board, regarding service update. So now I welcome you to the podium and just remind you that you have 10 minutes to speak. And please don't forget the little purple button on the right-hand side.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Your Worship. We are here tonight to explore some of the services that Port Hope Public Library offers to the community. We will showcase some of the unique features that make the library an integral part of the community, which, Your Worship, you've already said in some of your opening remarks. We have included in our slide deck, within our slide deck the Board of Trustees and their names for reference for Council. The Port Hope Library was established in 1912 and it's been serving the community thoroughly since then. The library is committed to providing free access to information, to education and recreation to the residents of Port Hope. We offer our patrons a variety of services, from the traditional borrowing to reference services to digital resources and in-person programming. As was already mentioned in Council this evening, the library plays more than just the role of the bricks and mortar in building and the books that are residing there. It provides a whole host of different facets of services to members of the public. The library provides access to patrons of all ages, from birth through to 100 years and plus, to access digital and physical collections to foster the love of reading within the community. The library offers those digital collections, which we are now seeing a growing number of people interested in audiobooks and in ebooks and accessing services for the library digitally. The library supports literacy and skill development and allows free access to the internet for those who need that service. It allows barrier-free technology with access to computers readily available throughout the opening times in the library. The library also hosts reference documents, a history section, and plays a core role in the preservation of the history of Port Hope and memorials to key characters like Farley Mowat. It also offers a community space with affordable rentals and a safe space for those who need to come inside out of the community, providing a warming centre at those time of years, and even access to read the collections, read magazines, and be in a warm and safe environment. The library works in partnership throughout many different areas of the community with schools, businesses, and local charitable organisations in order to expand its reach and deliver services to all patrons in the community. It also works to enhance health and well-being, allowing access to activities like meditation, yoga, mindfulness, and also the toddler and baby classes. It also provides access to digital learning platforms, including supporting people to learn new languages. The summer has seen a whole host of events at Port Hope Public Library at both the Mary J. Benson branch and also at the Canton Hub branch. It's been a bustling summer with many activities, much more than normal. But to highlight some of those activities that have taken place, we've seen the summer kickoff event with over 175 participants using activities like children's bouncy castles and activities, games, a cycling course, learning safety on the road, but seeing those 175 participants learning about the library and learning about its services. There were 113 participants in the summer reading club, and the person who won that campaign over the summer read 111 books themselves over that period. We also had baby time sessions with 46 attendees and toddlers and waddlers sessions with over 145 attendees over those courses. The library started Crafternoon, which allows people in the two activities that happened to participate in crafts within the branch, and that's seen 130 participants. We also, as you can see in this picture, have little libraries, places where you can leave books and pick them up and share books with the community and pick a book up when you're at the beach, for example, in this. And the library now has 9 of these little libraries throughout the rural and urban wards as well. There was a magician event with over 77 attendees and junior kindergarten program with 80 attendees. The circulation with over that period was 25,392 items through our circulations. That's books that have accessed via patrons via both branches. We also have had 11,000 visitors into the branches over the summer, 2 months of this summer periods. There's also been 178 new members and over 4,000 internet connections during that period. The numbers do a lot, but we also wanted to share some pictures of some of the activities that have taken place. The Port Hope Public Library has seen an increasing growth in many areas, both at the Mary J. Benson branch and also at the hub in Canton. The library is recovering from the pandemic and growing in many different areas. You can see that visitors at Mary J. Benson alone have increased by 14.8%. There was an increase in program attendance by almost 25% over the summer period in comparison to last year. And with 17.1% increase in attendance in programs at the Canton branch, which is one of the areas that the library is actively promoting. We also have a 21.5% increase in new member sign-ups, and the overall membership base has increased by 5.2%. Circulation also on the rise with an 8.8% increase. Thank you. I'm going to pass to Susan.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for making the time. The Port Hope Public Library appreciates its community partners, including volunteers, friends of the library, local businesses, charities, and of course, the municipality of Port Hope. Many individuals and groups work tirelessly behind the scenes to help the Port Hope Public Library successfully achieve its mission. So let's take a look at some of the exciting initiatives lined up for 2025. With the influx of young families, we're focusing on the children's area by modernizing and refreshing the space and adding new tablets and a secure digital play area. As demand for library resources increases, we will offer improved access across the province with the new interlibrary loan software. Engaging in a meaningful way with patrons is a priority for the library staff, who will be able to provide advice and guidance using tablets. Local groups will partner with the library to install new artwork, and all this in addition to new programming, local community outreach, and a new makerspace collection. These enhancements will make the library an even more compelling place to be. We encourage everyone to visit the Mary J. Benson and Hub Library branches to experience all that we have to offer. Programs, study spaces, guest speakers, and wellness sessions, to name but a few. And we're confident that you will find something of interest. So as you've heard, we're no longer our grandparents' library. We go far beyond books to offer everyone in the community a place to gather, connect, learn, and grow. We're grateful to Council for your support of this essential and treasured public institution. Gemma and I would love to hear your comments and answer your questions. And we'd like to thank you again on behalf of the library staff, CEO, and the board. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. And I'll now turn it over to the council table for comments and questions. I'm going to start at this side of the table and move to this side. Just there, Councillor Darrell.
Just want to say thanks for coming in and giving us a presentation. Really glad to see that everything has increased, especially in the Ward 2 and at the Canton Hub. I'm glad to see that. And just thanks.
Councillor Adams giving a nod. Kate, you're good. Councillor Todd.
Thanks very much, and I have to give a nod to the metrics. So thank you for that. Margaret, I always appreciate when we're measuring the stuff, and thank you so much for bringing this forward. One of the things that I was looking at, because the mission statement, which is such a great mission statement, right? To focus library services with commitment to equitable and open access to all resources. And I love the fact that the metrics tie back into it. So thank you so much for that.
Councillor Less.
And I just want to thank you for the diversity of programming you have in the library. That's certainly gone a long way than from my days when everything was shh in the library.
Okay, and I would also like to thank you for coming in for the presentation and for, as Councillor Todd said, some of the metrics which are becoming so important to us, especially as we're moving into budget season and knowing that we've got tough decisions ahead of us. And as much as we love all the programs and services that are available throughout the community through many of the different areas of the community, we're going to have some really difficult decisions in front of us. So thank you for the presentation, but also I hate to be the Debbie Downer on council, but just to say that we're going to have to be very mindful coming into the next budget season. And so it's not a reflection at all on all the wonderful things in the community, but just we're going to have to be really thoughtful in the coming months. But the metrics are very, very helpful for that decision making. So thank you for coming in today. So the recommended motion this evening is to accept the presentation for information. Can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Less, seconded by Councillor Mink. All in favor? Thank you. And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 6, deputations. Tonight we have no deputations. We're going to move on to item number 7, correspondence. 7.1. Northumberland Intermunicipal Task Force on Housing and Homelessness and Northumberland County regarding Homelessness 101, November 7th, 2024, tour and training. I'll ask either the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Todd, or the clerk to speak to the matter. So opening it up to any one of you to speak to it. So, yep, Councillor Todd.
Right. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to speak to this. I thought for the benefit of Councillor Darrell, who's new to council, and also as a reminder to the public, Deputy Mayor Claire and I were granted the opportunity by this council to represent the municipality of Port Hope on an intermunicipal task force on housing and homelessness in Northumberland County. Now, this task force has no authority, it doesn't make decisions, it doesn't bind the municipality to anything. It meets informally with no official chairperson, set agenda. It keeps no minutes, although it does provide council updates by way of notes through correspondence, so everyone knows what we do talk about. This particular piece of correspondence and the invitation that's included represents what I feel is an important opportunity for council to receive training on the state of housing and homelessness in Port Hope and across Northumberland County, and get a better understanding of what it is that's being addressed and what gaps are not being addressed. And so, why this? Why now? I think gone are the days when municipal governments can categorically dismiss issues surrounding housing and homelessness as being another level of government's responsibility. The inconvenient truth is that the number of people who earn an income but can no longer afford a rental unit, so are stuck couch surfing or living in cars or wind up in tents, is growing every year. The choices that we make during budget deliberation, the tools we use, like the ones that we were exposed to in last week's presentation around development charges, and the strategy that we set towards diversifying our tax base or incentivizing affordable development will entirely impact the lives of those citizens who are teetering on the brink of homelessness. This training opportunity will give council a chance to educate itself about the changing face of homelessness and provide a chance to ask questions about what is being done to mitigate those growing risks and what is the emerging role of municipal government. So I look forward to chatting about this.
Thank you, Councillor Todd. Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you for that excellent summary. I just have a couple of thoughts to add to that. And those who have been following, and I assume our council colleagues, as you've been reading the notes of the task force, we've sort of meandered over this first almost year of our gathering together. And we're starting to move towards, I think, probably recommending actions at the lower tier level especially. We've learned so much about what is happening at the county, where what the resources are and where those resources are being invested. And we're starting to identify places where we are likely to be even called upon potentially by the county to play a role in supporting and complementing their efforts, but also recognizing where there are still gaps, recognizing that the county with their current resources cannot be everything for everyone that is who is currently either homeless or underhoused. And so we're going to have to start looking at the lower tier level of some of the things that we can do to help address those gaps and complement and collaborate with the county. And as we do that, this may be coming from the mayor, who has access to all this information as a county councillor, or from those of us that are sitting on the intermunicipal task force. And we're I think for me, it seems very clear that our ability to navigate that together is going to be better served by having, to borrow a term from the mayor, informational symmetry, where we all have that same sort of full picture understanding of the challenges we face in the county as a whole, and some of the areas where we as lower tiers may be called up to fill gaps. And so we're hoping that everyone will be able to join in and get up to speed with all of that information. And we're very grateful for the county staff for working with us to bring this event together.
Just before I move on to Councillor Les, would the clerk like to weigh in on this as well? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you, Deputy Mayor Holloway Wadwani and Councillor Attridge, for providing an overview of the session and its purpose. So from a process perspective, I just wanted to speak to what is going to happen tonight, just because it is a little bit unusual, and I just wanted to clarify what will be happening from a process perspective at this council table. So the request has come through from the county clerk to have this council pass a resolution to have a joint meeting of the county councils. So these are the lower tier municipalities, to have a joint meeting of these 7-member municipalities, which would take place on November 7th. It would be for the purpose of education and training, and it would be for the purpose of the education and training on the subject matter that the Deputy Mayor was speaking to, as well as Councillor Attridge. It would be a closed meeting, as is allowed under the Municipal Act. For the purpose of education and training. There would be a component of a tour that would be associated with that. We are still getting some more details with respect to what that event would look like. We haven't received all of the details yet, but for the purpose of our meeting tonight, what we're asking through County Council, who has also received a legal opinion from their integrity commissioner, which has been vetted by some of our municipalities' integrity commissioners as well, is that a resolution be passed. I'm happy to read that out, but Deputy Mayor, if you're comfortable with that. The resolution that would be passed tonight, would be considered by council tonight, would be that whereas a joint meeting of Northumberland County Council and the 7-member municipalities councils will take place on November 7th, 2024, regarding the issue of homelessness for the purpose of education and training, and whereas, based on legal guidance and governance best practices, Northumberland County seeks a common resolution adopted by each of the participating member municipalities councils. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Port Hope Council hereby authorizes council's participation in the November 7th Homelessness 101 Joint Council meeting, and further be it resolved that this council authorizes the use of Northumberland County's Procedural Bylaw 39/2023 as supplemented by the special procedures for the day for the purpose of the November 7th meeting, and further be it resolved that this council authorizes the Northumberland County Clerk to be the presiding clerk at the November 7th joint meeting, and further be it resolved that this council authorizes special procedures for the sole purpose of facilitating the joint meeting on November 7th, including that the official record of the meeting shall be kept by the county clerk, and that quorum for the meeting shall be 50+1 of the total members of the participating councils, noting that county councillors shall be counted only once, although they are members of both upper and lower tier councils. and that any other procedures that are as necessary by the venue may be used for the purpose of the November 7th meeting. So as part of that, that is the motion that is in front of council today for your consideration. As part of some of the legal guidance that we have received, I will also be delegating my authority to the county clerk to clerk that meeting for the purpose of that November 7th meeting as well. So available to answer any questions with respect to process. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to just turn to others for questions about process. I'm sure that the deputy mayor wants to weigh in on this, but it's not a process. Okay, so deputy mayor.
Can I put you on the spot and ask you to provide just a quick plain language summary of what that all means? It's a lot.
I will do my best,
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor, but essentially what we are requesting this council to do is to pass a resolution authorizing this council to meet as a joint council of the 7-member municipalities. We are authorizing that the clerk of that one meeting would be the county clerk, and that the procedure bylaw that would be followed for that meeting only would be the county bylaw, and that any procedures that would be necessary to bring forward a meeting like that would be developed would be authorized by this council. So that's really what we're doing. And I do want to note, this is an unusual request, does not happen very, very often, which is why we are being, we are being cautious and ensuring that all of the member municipalities have an opportunity to consider this matter and determine whether they want to participate or not. Thank you. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you for that clarification. So I'm assuming that because we answered this question about process, that we can still ask some questions before we have a mover and seconder to discuss this further. Is that okay? So does anybody have any other questions about this? Councillor Lass.
Two words come to mind: knowing and doing. The ability to get this knowledge and attend this meeting and do the tour and interface with 51 other people. Yeah, that's somewhat important. Agreed. But we're still left with the doing part, which no level of government has come up with the capability to address this problem in a meaningful way. So other than gaining some knowledge, I don't think we fulfilled the end of doing. So my opinion.
I would agree with you on that point, Councillor Lass. I have a couple of questions. Maybe it's because I sit both on county council and here. First is just around, and first of all, I want to say that I am always in support of education and awareness and training and gaining more information about really complex issues that are faced in all communities, including ours here in Port Hope, whether we're talking about the local or the county. But in terms of a process, I'm sort of scratching my head a bit because this is coming forward as part of a county initiative, and I sit on county council and I sit on subcommittees, and it's the first time that I'm hearing anything about that. So I'm just wondering if either one of you could just clarify what the process has been, because the county council is not aware of this. And the second question I have is there actually an agenda, like who's going to be speaking? What are the topics going to be covered? And I realize it's pretty sort of short order, and just wondering just about when that kind of information is going to be available. And just, I think, a follow-up to the deputy mayor's point about who holds information about this, just a reminder. I know that people probably don't tune in, but all the county council meetings, in terms of all the discussions that we have around these issues, are always available to the public, and anybody can join online and listen to that. But really the first two questions were the ones that I was wondering about. So, Deputy Mayor.
Sorry. I I guess, a little bit surprised that it hasn't come to the attention of County Council, because it has been planned in coordination with County. So the CAO of County was certainly aware of this. The clerk has been working to organize it. The Social Services Department has been collaborating with the task force to put the event together. And in the letter from the task force, or by the chair, I guess volunteer chair of our task force, on behalf of the task force, it does indicate that working with county social services, they're arranging for a trainer from org code to come and to provide some training on homelessness and homelessness response. But my understanding is that I believe Rebecca Garman and potentially, Carmen and some other staff from County Social Services will also be involved in the orientation and sort of training of the full spectrum of supports that are currently being offered through the county.
Well, I'll be certainly pulling it forward for discussion at the county table, because we really haven't had a fulsome discussion on this. So I think it's important that we find out. And then, so is it the case then that the agenda hasn't been fully set then in terms of what's happening for the day?
I believe so. I believe that's County Social Services that will be finalizing that agenda. And it may come forward. We have a task force meeting on Thursday, so I can certainly ask if there's been any updates of correspondence for the task force members who have been working directly with county on this.
Okay, that's very helpful. And I just have one other follow-up question for the clerk. We are assured that there's no issues in terms of quorum or meeting or anything like that, that we should be, this has all been just vetted fully from all levels, including the county level.
So our integrity commissioner has not officially weighed in on this, but we have received legal advice. We have received the legal memo from the integrity commissioner for the county. It is my understanding that another member municipality has had that reviewed as well. And so I'm quite comfortable with the resolution as it stands. It is ensuring that we are following the spirit of the act, because the act itself is quite silent when it comes to joint meetings. So we're ensuring that we're covering ourselves for quorum and meetings outside of this council table.
Thank you. And I think that's just important to emphasize for anyone listening and for the public. Councillor Todd.
Yeah, I think all things being equal, really what this amounts to is, if we would just get everyone together and get some training on homelessness. Unfortunately, the Municipal Act doesn't like it when we all get together. And so this gives a bit of a framework, but, in the impetus of this, it was really, the task force itself is informal. We sit, we talk about opportunities, what are the chances of learning more, and really what came forward was, it'd be really great if we got everyone together on the same page about what's going on the face of homelessness, and how do we go about doing that. So this was sort of step one, like, can we possibly get everyone in the same room? Guest speaker comes in, talks about it. The formality comes because Municipal Act says, if you're getting all these municipal government officials together, then we want to make sure that, we're not, passing law and so on. And that's not the intention. It's how do we get together and talk about and listen to training on homelessness, which I think would benefit everybody.
I thank you for that. And also one of the things definitely that I'll be bringing up in terms of an agenda item is to get some training around how do we read budgetary information, in particular funding that comes from upper tiers of government, and how those are dispensed, distributed, and spent, and how we are actually reporting on the metrics of that for the community. And I think that's a really important part of financial literacy in terms of some of the budgeting, so that we understand how that money flows and where it winds up. So, okay, so thank you for that, and thank you, Clerk, for reading out the the resolution motion. So at this point, we have, I don't know if there's an alternative motion that's going to be put forward, if we're just holding on to the wording as it is. If there's no alternative motion on the table, then I'll ask for a mover and seconder for it. Moved by Councillor Todd, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. Any other further discussion, comments? Okay, all in favor? Thank you, and that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 8, consent agenda, adoption of minutes. Items listed under the consent agenda are considered collectively as one motion. Council members may request that specific items be removed for separate discussion, deliberation, and action. The consent items are listed on the agenda. Would any member of council like to remove any of these items for separate discussion? And so these are 8.1 through to 8.5. Seeing none, can I just get a mover and seconder for that, please? Moved by Councillor Les, seconded by Councillor Todd. All in favor? That is passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 9, consent agenda advisory committee and board meetings. Would anyone like to remove any of the items under this consent agenda for separate discussion? Seeing none, and these are 9.1 through to 9.4. So can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Darrell, seconded by Councillor Adam. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 10, items for consideration. 10.1, report FS 1624 re 2025, post-retirement and amortization. Does staff have anything further they would like to add before we consider this report?
I'll attempt to plain language it a little bit more. We are essentially bringing this to you. It's a legislative requirement, and historically municipalities budgeted more on a cash basis, and that's evolved over time as we now have tangible capital assets and asset management planning and all those fun aspects. So the difference here is between whether we're providing the funding as the service is provided, right, or at the time of payment. And we think about that in terms of our capital assets. Right now, we continue to raise funds as we're about to acquire newer replacement assets, right? And we are budgeting on that, I'll call it cash basis. Historically, many municipalities were contributing a lot less than their actual depreciation. And the depreciation is if we take the value of the asset 30 years ago and allocate that, a portion of that cost over the 30 or 50-year lifespan, that's the actual expense within the year that our community, enjoyed, as opposed to when you paid for it. Make sense? So that still plays out today. We in our last budget raised $3.9 million towards capital coming from levy, and our amortization of our capital assets coming from levy was still higher. Although that gap is getting less and less, you're still comparing it to cost from 30 years ago, right? From not needing to have, as many sidewalks, as wide of a road for bike lanes and those sorts of things. So, but it isn't early on. I remember when I first started, it was a good initial gauge. How much are you raising each year compared to the historical value of your assets, which underestimates what you need now. But if you're spending less than that, that's not a good sign. We are improving on that, as you know, but we are still in that situation. So essentially, this report is for the purpose of educating council, making sure that you are aware that we are not budgeting for the historical value of the assets we are using up. We are budgeting for what we are going to be acquiring and updating this, because some legislation on this is fairly old, but we're really aiming to do, as you know, is move towards funding an asset management plan. Because even if I was to say to you today, hey, we're funding the same level as the assets we're using up, we're still not in a great spot, right? Because what you spent for it 30 years ago is far from what we would need to spend on it today. And likely today is also going to need some improvements for climate change and, other legislative, requirements today. So that is the essence really of this report, is so that you are aware when you're passing the budget that you're not, necessarily budgeting for all of the costs that we're going to would be experiencing on an accrual accounting basis. Very exciting. But that, that we are essentially, just spending on the amount, or just budgeting for the amount that we are going to be spending within the year. And that is true both for the amortization of capital assets and also for this, talking about the post-retirement benefits, which is really, if someone retires, early, or before 65, then they get certain benefits. And so there's a question about, is the expense of this year the expense for me while I'm working to put aside for when I eventually hopefully retire, before 65? Or is it are we budgeting for the individuals who are retired now and maybe are 64 and still, getting some benefits? So on both we're budgeting on the cash basis. The one that I would say, we want to focus on, because the post-retirement benefits, we've got that fully accrued for. We're in a good spot on that. Other than the police, which is a work in progress, it's really on the capital side. So, as we all know, going into this budget, we'll be mindful on infrastructure and trying to get our funding to a sustainable level. We do require, there is a recommendation here for a resolution. We do require that from legislative purpose. Otherwise, this would be received for information or probably not me talking about it at all. But if you would be so happy to take any questions, and do ask that we do have something to just check that box for us. Thanks.
Thank you, Director. Any questions or comments from around the table? Seeing none, we do have a recommended action that's listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Todd. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to the next agenda item, 11.2, report PS 1424, Municipal Law Enforcement Supervisor and Fire Inspector appointment. Does staff have anything further they would like to add before we consider this report?
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Very quickly, this is a straightforward report. At the conclusion of a very extensive recruitment process, a municipal law enforcement supervisor and fire inspector have been selected, and we'll start employment with the municipality. Actually, the supervisor started today, and our fire inspector will start with us next week. Very exciting times with Protective Services. This is a very straightforward report and attached bylaw, which basically speaks to the required appointment through bylaw to appoint individuals as municipal law enforcement officers for the municipality. This is for the purposes to provide them with the authority under the Ontario Building Code, the Police Services Act, as well as the Provincial Offences Act to carry out their duties such as the enforcement of municipal bylaws. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Director Williams, and congratulations on the recruitment, successful recruitment. The recommended action is to refer this item to bylaw, but before we consider that, any questions or comments on this? Okay, can I get a mover and seconder for it? Moved by Councillor Less, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item number 11, committee reports and recommendations. 11.1, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting October 1st, 2024 regarding correspondence from the Ganaraska Region Conservation Authority regarding Northumberland County draft growth management official plan amendment. Is there anything further that anyone would like to add before we vote on the matter? Councillor Less?
Yes, I don't see included in the verbiage anything regarding maybe switching back to the way we used to run council and committee of the whole on every second Tuesday together. And I'd like that to be part of the survey questions that we put forward to our constituents and see what they say.
I think that we're not on that item right now. We're on 11.1, which is around the Ganaraska Region Conservation Authority. That's okay. You can hold on to that thought for a bit later. But in relation to this particular item, does anybody have any other questions or comments? Okay, can I get a mover and seconder for this? Moved by Councillor Todd, seconded by Councillor Mink. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to 11.2, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting, October 1st, 2024, regarding meeting notes of September 19th, 2024 of the Northumberland Intermunicipal Task Force on Housing and Homelessness. Is there anything further that anybody would like to add before we vote on the recommended action? Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Less, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to 11.3, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting, October 1st, 2024, regarding report CS 13, 2024, re 2024 to 2026, Committee of Adjustment appointment. Is there anything further anyone would like to add before we vote on this matter? Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder for the recommended action on the agenda? Moved by Councillor Todd, seconded by Councillor Adam. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item 11.4, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting, October 1st, 2024, regarding report CS 1424, re 1-year review of the procedural bylaw approach. Is there anything further that anyone would like to add before we vote? Councillor Less.
Rewind the tape and insert here. Sorry about that. I was flipping around.
That's okay. Do you want to just make your point again?
I'd like to see a question put on the agenda for review to change the council and committee of the whole meetings back to being included in one session every second Tuesday.
And I see our director going for the.
So in the planned engagement, we do have an open-ended opportunity for members of the public to comment on what schedule they think works best for decision-making in Port Hope. We haven't identified an explicit question about going back to the previous schedule. I think whether or not that's included is really subject to council's consideration, but at this point in time, there's ample opportunity for members of the public to identify exactly that, including some open-ended opportunities to share the same.
If you leave something open-ended, there may not be any response because they're not quite sure what type of information they're after. I'm specifically after information regarding specifically the proposal I brought forward. So I'd like to see it included.
Happy to take that into consideration. I'd note that we're doing our best to sort of educate as we ask the questions. And I would identify that a piece of feedback we received the last time we did the procedural bylaw survey is that the method of decision-making was not well understood by the public, including that previous system of decision-making.
Any other, Councillor Mink?
Thank you. I just have a question for Councillor Andrews. Is the request you're getting, is it wanting to see both on the same night or is it the schedule itself? Because I am getting feedback that people are confused. When is committee of the whole? When is council? And there's that confusion where it's not the first and third Tuesday anymore. So is that the feedback you're getting, or is it that they want them both on the same night?
No, I would like to see it as we used to do it, because not only are we adding an extra meeting for council and committee of the whole council, we're adding special meetings at random throughout, and like we're virtually tying up every Tuesday. We used to take a summer break. That never happened. So I think if we started condensing things and maybe the agendas can't be as long as they are. I mean, are we having long agendas at council now to fill time? I don't know.
Deputy Mayor.
I appreciate your sentiment and your desire to promote that one approach to the meeting schedule, but it seems to me that we're getting ahead of ourselves because we're getting sort of into the weeds about one proposal. If we were going to do that, I'm sure there's many of us at the Horseshoe have very specific proposals related to meeting schedules that we would want considered as well. And my understanding is we will have an opportunity, and in fact, a special workshop style meeting where we can all raise those as potential solutions to the concerns we hear from the public.
And can I just make one comment and then I'll turn it over? I'm just wondering, in the sort of the spirit of some of the open-ended questions that will be provided to the public, whether or not at any points we could give some examples of the kinds of topics that they might want to comment on in those open-ended answers. But with that, I'll turn it over to the CAO.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm just going to loop back to Councillor Andrews. A couple of things. One, there has been different councillors that have approached municipal staff outlining different potential schedules and what that potentially could look like. So to ask just one question on one schedule that is potentially preferred by one member of council, I feel that as staff, we would then have to include every potential option that each councillor would like to see as a schedule, and that could be problematic. So when the director is stating that there is open text box, there's questions above it that details, that ask specific questions, but then there's also the opportunity to provide additional information that isn't just a click a dot, like a yes or no. You have the ability to add additional context around that if you have more things to say. So that's my comment on that. I can assure you that we had a summer break. We went at actually significant period of time with no meetings, and we didn't call a special meeting during our summer break. And I 100% guarantee you that we're not making up work to keep these meetings longer.
Councillor Lass.
Yeah, well, when I look at some of the things that you're looking at, I see very specific guidance or questions. For one, time limits, processes for presentation, deputation. I mean, how much different is that? You asking that than me asking a specific question. You don't have to answer it now. It's just something I'll throw out there.
And Councillor Mink has a question or comment.
Thank you. And thank you, Councillor Andrews, for bringing this up. I do also see value in not asking specific, but just the straightforward question: is it better now or before? Just that straight question, because I do feel that a lot of the rhetoric and stuff that's happening in the community is not specific about a particular change. It's about the change entirely, and it's coming through in different ways. But just asking the question, do you like it better now or do you like it how it was before, might just bottom line be a question to ask. It is, and I understand that different councillors have feedback, but it is about what works for the community. They're giving us that feedback.
So I'm just going to jump in here for a second before the deputy mayor says anything. I'm just wondering, with a question of did you like it better before versus do you like it better now, what are you hoping to glean from that answer? And does that mean theoretically that everything about all the changes are wrong-headed? That seems like too much of a blunt instrument to be using for a line of questioning to the public.
I'm not saying that's the only question. I'm just recommending that could be one question. I do hear that consistently. Go back to the old way, go back to the old way. So I would just like to know how many people out there would say, yes, I like it better the old way, if that was one of the questions in amongst a number of questions. I think it is a fair question to ask. If we don't get the result back, then we don't. But if we do, then we know that it was preferred the previous way. And it's not for me to say that that is the right way or not. I want to hear from the community. I'm hearing a lot of pushback on the change, and I want to get to the bottom of what it is. And if we're not asking that question, then we might not get the answer.
And I'm just going to jump into it to ask one follow-up, and then I'll turn it over to the deputy mayor. But you'd have to get a lot more fine-grained to understand what part of the changes as opposed to all of the change. I understand that we may be wanting to do an evaluation, but just asking, did you like it better before or after, without asking, what do you like better now? What do you not like better now? And getting fine grained into that information is not going to give us information that is very useful for moving forward. I still maintain, I think that is too blunt of an instrument to be asking a question on. But Deputy Mayor, and then I'll turn it back around the table.
I'm actually going to push it one step further, I think, than the comments by Mayor Alana, which are also fantastic. You know, I think we don't want to limit ourselves to asking people for feedback about 2 pieces of paper, 2 documents. It's setting up a binary as if these are the only 2 options we have available to us. Every municipality has a procedural bylaw that looks different, that is specific to the context of that municipality. So I'm going to be far more interested in input from the community about, what do you want? What do you want to see in your procedural bylaw? What are the points of access that are going to be meaningful for you to participate in our decision-making process? And then we use that information to review our current practices and look for opportunities to strengthen or tweak our practices to respond to that interest that the community has. And so I think, you know, getting beyond the feedback on what's already in print and more into the, what does this community want? How do we want to engage together? What's going to make us feel good about how we make decisions together? And then we use that to inform where we go from here. And I hope it's not backwards. I hope it's towards something new and meaningful that we can all get behind.
And I see the CAO's got her hand up, so I'll turn it over to you, Candace.
Thank you, Mayor. I just think that, just to sum this up, I think staff has heard council across the board, and I think we'll take this back and ensure that we encapsulate what you're trying to achieve in the survey in some form or fashion. I'm not guaranteeing you it's going to be what has been tabled here this evening, but I think we've heard you, and we can ensure that, you know, everyone is represented in that survey.
Thank you for that, CAO. Any other questions or comments? So the recommended action is listed on the agenda. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Darrell, seconded by Councillor Adam. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item 11.5, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting October 1st, 2024, regarding report DS 2324 regarding extension number 5 of draft approval request AGSU 35. And I want to note here that our CAO would like to speak to this item before we vote on the matter.
Thank you, Mayor. Just circling back to the discussion that we had at Committee of the Whole and the direction that was given to staff to ensure that we were able to provide some language that took the subwatershed study into consideration for the proposed Osika subdivision. So we have reached out to the GRCA and received some updated information in regards to the timelines on the subwatershed study. Unfortunately, there is no dedicated time frame for when this scope of work is going to commence. In fact, we received notification from them that it has been pushed to 2025 before it will commence. We are expected to receive the terms of reference that will detail the scope of work of the study within the next couple of weeks. With that said, ensuring that we're being fair and reasonable with the applicant, we were able to draft the motion that if the subwatershed study was to be completed by October 1st, 2026, that the outcome and the recommendations of that study would then be applied to this particular subdivision. It is the opinion of municipal staff and the GRCA that it is relatively small subdivision and the impact isn't expected to be great. And at least if council is to grant the 3-year extension, that does give them 1 year, basically October 2026 to October 2027, to at least complete the work. Considering it's unusual to invoke a draft plan condition for a study that the time frame is uncertain. The funding has been dedicated, but it hasn't moved forward, and we're not able to provide with certainty any dedicated. We haven't even approved the scope of work at this point. So we felt that that was being fair to the applicant while also trying to respect the wishes of council in regards to having the study completed and potentially having some of the findings apply to the development. Thank you.
Thank you to the CAO. Any questions or further comments on this matter? Okay, so just to be clear, I am going to read this recommended action out for us. The recommended action is whereas council at their committee of the whole meeting held on October 1st, 2024 considered staff report DS 2324 regarding extension number 5 of draft approval request AGSU 35 and directed staff to bring forward a draft plan condition and additional clarification language considering the sub-watershed study, and whereas staff added condition number 25 as noted in attachment number 3 stating a sub-watershed study is being contemplated for the Osaka area with timing unknown. Should the sub-watershed study be completed by October 1st, 2026, the applicant shall address any issues and concerns arising out of it. Now, therefore, be it resolved that council approve the extension of the draft approval for plan of subdivision file number AGSU 35 in part lot 28, concession 5 in Osaka for a 3-year period from October 24th, 2024 to October 24th, 2027, subject to the updated consolidated draft conditions as noted in attachment number 3. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Les, seconded by Councillor Mink. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to 11.6. Motion from Committee of the Whole meeting October 1st, 2024 regarding report DS 2424, Destination Marketing Service Review 2024. Is there anything further that anyone would like to add before we vote on the matter? Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor, and that is passed unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to 11.7, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting October 1st, 2024 regarding report FS 1424 re-prescribed fees for services. Is there anything further that anybody would like to add before we vote on this matter? Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder? Moved by Councillor Darrell, seconded by Councillor Adam. All in favor, and that is passed unanimously. Moving on to item 11.8, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting October 1st, 2024 regarding report PRC 1124 re 2024 update to the Municipal Recreation Program subsidy policy. Is there anything further anybody would like to add before we vote on the matter? Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Les, seconded by Councillor Todd. All in favor? Thank you. That is passed unanimously. Moving on to 11.9, motion from Committee of the Whole meeting October 1st, 2024 regarding free public transit for youth. Is there anything further anybody would like to add before we vote on the matter? Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder for this? Moved by the Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Todd. All in favor? And that is passed unanimously. We have no new notice of motions. Moving on to item number 13, bylaws consent agenda. Bylaws are passed by consent agenda. Would anyone like to remove an bylaw for separate consideration and discussion? And here we have 13.1 through to 13.3. Seeing none, can I get a mover and seconder to pass the bylaws as listed on the agenda? Moved by Councillor Adams, seconded by Councillor Les. All in favor, and that is passed unanimously. It is now time for item number 14, the confirmatory bylaw. This bylaw confirms the proceedings that took place this evening and provides a formal adoption through a bylaw. Can I get a mover and seconder for that? Moved by Councillor Darrell, seconded by Councillor Adam. All in favor? That is passed unanimously. This concludes our business to be covered on today's agenda. We've reached the end of the agenda, and I'm in a position to adjourn at 7:55 p.m. Thank you very much, everyone.